Hey guys, so we're now in our last week of the Grin to Winet project campaign, and we've been absolutely blown away by the number of original submissions that have come into our gallery, and now it falls in my responsibility to pick our final winner of this. And this has been an extremely tough job because there are just so many great builds that have been showcased in our online gallery, but I managed to narrow it down to at least 7 that I thought are worthy of a solid shout out here. And rather than jumping straight to the winner, I'm just going to detail each one of those 7 builds and why they spoke to me. So when we launched this campaign, we didn't have a specific criteria on what we were judging people by. We just gave different staff members at Grin the ability to choose what build most spoke to them for whatever reason they have. Now for me, what I really like to see in these submissions is first and foremost, a nice detailed write-up, whether it's with words or with photos that explains not just the end result of the build, but what led to the decisions in building this project, what impact it's had on the person's life, etc. I'm also interested in projects that showcase the additional utility that e-assist brings to electric bike categories. That's the ability to move cargo, to move people, to do things that you just couldn't really envision or think possible without the electric motor, and it showcases the enabling features of electric assist in this mobility world. The third thing that really speaks to me is when people do something a little bit innovative or different and showcase some of their creative flair in their project. That can be purely aesthetic or artistic, or it can be a very interesting technological solution using the motors or the control electronics in unusual ways that really serve a unique application. And finally, the fourth thing that I generally look for is clean lines and a tight integration. A lot of DIY e-bikes have a bit of a reputation of looking like Franken e-bikes, and while that has its own kind of charm, there's something really to be said for people who put the extra detail and attention into routing their wires, their cabling, and integrating the electric system so that it seems form-fit for the project that they're building, and not just an afterthought. So based on those 4 criteria, I pored over all the submissions last night and came up with at least a short list of 7 builds from which I was trying to choose who I would award the winner. Now that's been a real struggle, and I'm going to at least give a little walkthrough of those 7 builds and why I think they're great examples. So the first of these submissions to make my shortlist is the kitchen sink 2-wheel drive everything e-bike from Jason in the USA. This has an all-axle front motor, a Muxus direct drive rear motor, and it was Jason's 4th e-bike build as he was wanting to incorporate all the lessons that he'd learned and have something that would work on a planned 2,000-kilometer journey. What I love about this submission is that it goes into great detail on the various design criteria that led Jason to build a multimedia e-bike like this. He wanted something that was totally pedalable, but had a torque sensor, and had the capacity to go great distances, climb any hills, and carry all kinds of stuff. And he wanted to pull all of that off while having something that still handled and felt like an e-bike and not like an electric motorbike. Does it work? Yes, and he couldn't be happier, but he's also frank in the challenges that he ran into building this bike and operating a complex setup like this, and making it clear that it's definitely not for everything. In my perception, it's pretty much the perfect culmination for someone's 4th e-bike build. It's not very easy to cram all those features with dual motors, a powerful lighting system, torque control, multiple battery packs, and additional luggage racks all on one bike, but I'd say he pulled it off pretty well. He managed to source parts and integrate them from different vendors and end up with the ultimate machine for himself. Number 2 on the shortlist is the Verhagensbahn Fahrtmit-Bikewagen, pardon my terrible German, but this is a beautifully crafted sidecar that was made by one of our long-standing customers, Ingo. Now there isn't a whole lot of written write-up on this submission, it's just been translated by Google, but the photo journey shows just an immaculately crafted sidecar project, custom-made fiberglass enclosure. It's running dual all-axle motors, one on the front of the bicycle, one side-mounted motor on the side of the sidecar, and has a roll-off 14-speed internal gear hub on the back. I can't wait to hear more details about the end application of this sidecar bike. To me, I think sidecars are such a great concept from the 1940s and 50s in motorcycle land that could see a resurgence in the world of bicycles. Traveling with 2 people and having your passenger beside you instead of behind you enables you to interact socially. And of course, it turns a lot of heads to be cruising down the road with a sidecar. He mentioned stuff about having a sound system, actually built all of his own battery packs inside this. You'll see these little potted modules that look very much like our original LIGO batteries, and is clearly crafted with an enormous amount of marksmanship and care. So Ingo, please explain in more details what this project's getting used for, but I absolutely love everything I see with it so far. So the third build to make my short list is called Proving the All Axle is for All Axles. So this is a Super 73 fat bike that a customer, Martin in France, had since he was 15 years old, and he was looking to upgrade it to get more features and capability. Part of what makes his build unique is that this Super 73 fat bike uses a 170 millimeter dropout, but at the time he bought the motor from Grin, there was no 170 millimeter adapter set. So he showed how with some DIY creativity and having a brother who has machining capabilities, they custom made all their adapters and axle extenders to fit our all-axle motor in a system with a 170 millimeter dropout. It's also a great piece at showcasing just how neatly you can upgrade a factory e-bike into a DIY e-bike by putting in higher end components, stripping out the original motor and controller electronics. And Martin summarized his logic and process in this in a fantastic 10-minute video that I highly recommend you have a watch. So number 4 just jumped out immediately as eye candy to everyone who saw this one. It's titled My Custom 80s Swatch Anodized BMX Themed e-trike. This is an electric trike that, if you look closely, is made entirely with anodized aluminum tubing and clamps. There is no welding involved in the construction of this frame. And he's done DIY anodizing in a fantastic color blend that makes this project look unlike almost any other bicycle you've seen. And while the mechanical stuff is incredibly intricate like clockworks, the electrical integration is dialed in to perfection, making this just a showpiece that I think would win design awards in its own art category, but is also a fully functional adaptive trike. So Kane, congratulations on your one of many wonderful submissions and builds, and flush out some more text explanation on the next one. One thing that I love to see is how electric assist can often bring a new lease to life to an old bike project. So in this case, Kevin from Oregon had this 20-year-old cargo bike frame sitting in his garage and not seeing a whole lot of use. He also happened to have got a minimal all-axle conversion kit for another project he was going to do, but that project hadn't got started yet, so he thought, what the heck? Why don't I just throw this kit on my old cargo bike? And here's the result. And I think it's just stunningly beautiful. You can see that it's been a well-weathered and loved cargo bike in its day, but the integration addition of the motor and battery fits so cleanly with the existing lines of this cargo bike that you'd never guess it wasn't meant to be electric from the get-go. And who knows how many decades in the future this will continue to be a hauling machine. So there's no better way to share the e-biking experience and adventure with your close friend or partner than a tandem bicycle. And we've had some fantastic tandem bike submissions to our project gallery. But this Fat E tandem, the big boss, really takes the cake as one of the most striking ones so far. It's a gorgeous 10-year-old handmade bike frame from Ventana Bikes in California. And Patrick and his partner were using it on all kinds of adventures, but now that he's 60 years old and having back issues, he couldn't bear the thought of losing his ability to ride this tandem bike, so he sought out for electrification options. So our all-axle front motor made the perfect kit, considering that it uses a through-axle fork and he's got a roll-off hub on the back. But one of the things I really like about this build is how he's integrated and incorporated the batteries inside the custom-made bags, and how thoroughly he's detailed all the components that were used in this build with links to each of the different vendors for the parts. I think it's a well thought out and extremely well executed tandem bike retrofit. I hope you keep going on wonderful adventures well into the future, Patrick. So there's a term in France called véhicule intermédiaire, which sort of means in-between vehicles, things that aren't quite bicycles, but they're not quite cars, and they don't yet have a clear regulatory classification for where they fit on the roads, how fast they can go, but it's an extremely promising mode of alternative transport. And we see a lot of people experimenting and exploring with vehicles that fall in this classification category. So my 7th pick is what we would call a véhicule intermédiaire, built by Jean in France. And this was built following an open source project called the Vélio, where all the plans and details exist for anyone to build this trike by themselves. So it's not trying to be a bicycle, it's trying to be kind of a car replacement. It fits 2 people in comfortable seats, still has fully functional pedals, can tow a trailer, and Jean built not 1 but 2 of these for himself and his friends to take on a 3,000 kilometer touring trip all over Europe last summer. In his own words, my first trikes, my first bike trip, my first real adventure with my friends. What an amazing experience. I think that sums up all the things that a DIY e-bike can build for somebody. Jean, I'm so glad that you pulled this project together. I'm thrilled to hear that you have another build project and adventure planned for this summer, and continue inspiring people all over the world with what a custom DIY e-bike can be. So those 7 builds just scratched the surface of the countless fascinating submissions that we've had on our project gallery. And now I've got to pick one amongst those 7 to be my staff pick for the final Winet to Winet prize. And in this case, I'm giving that to our kitchen sink e-bike by Jason. So this may not have the best style points, it may not have the most creative build, but it goes into great detail explaining the rationale and the decisions on the different components that led to this bike being built. And on a personal level, I can absolutely relate to wanting an e-bike that does everything. A bike that can carry my family, a bike that can carry stuff, a bike that I can use for short casual trips around the seawall, a bike that rides and handles like a normal bicycle but still has a stunning range when you need it. I like that Jason pulled this together with a fairly clean end result in spite of all the complexity of incorporating a 2-wheel drive setup. And if there was any bike that I would pick as my own bike that I would ride, this would be it. So congratulations, Jason. There's $250 of credit in your account. And a reminder to everyone that we still have 10 days left for the final video submissions. The best video award is for $1,000 of store credit. Have a look at the description below for a link of all the current videos that have been submitted. And if you feel inspired to submit your own video, you still have until the end of the month to get your application in. And we'll be super thrilled to draw our favorite video award at the end of the month.
Hey everybody, thanks for making it to the very end of the video. I ran the draw and we had 35 submissions this week, so it was a tough one to win, but the winner came up number 391, and that was this guy right here. He's got a tadpole trike. He's from Australia. That's our second winner from Australia, so congratulations. And he's done actually a really cool build here. It's got a sunshade on top, which I'm sure flaps in the wind like crazy. It's kind of his retirement vehicle, and he's running a hub drive in the like a mid-mounted hub drive, and he's able to get regen on this thing. So it's a really amazing build. We're really stoked on what you've done here. He says he's gone from a G-Mac to an SX2, and soon he'll be setting it up with a V3 all-axle. So congrats on the win. And it'll be the first or second week in June when we'll announce the video prize winner. So stay tuned for that, and take care everyone. Cheers.